In the deepest, most secretive reaches of the Imperial Palace on Terra, there is a place whose very existence is denied by all but the highest echelons of the Imperium. A place cloaked in silence, locked beneath strata of secrecy, where even the Adeptus Administratum lacks proper documentation. It has no designation on official maps, no mention in ecclesiarchal sermons, no commemoration in imperial scripture. But it is there. They are called many things: the dark vaults, the shadow cells, the deepest oubliettes. But among those few who know the truth, they are referred to in hushed tones as the dark cells, a name as stark and hollow as the prisons themselves. Beneath the Eternity Gate, behind adamantium walls laced with stasis fields and sanctified wards, these are the crypts where the Imperium locks away not heretics or traitors, but nightmares. Not prisoners of politics or battle, but things that defy reason, that reality itself seems eager to forget. These vaults were not built by the Administratum or the Inquisition. Their foundations go back to the earliest days of the Imperium. Some even say to the final centuries of the Age of Strife. It was the Emperor himself who ordered their construction, who set in place the first bindings, the first sanctified circuits and runes, the first chains forged not of metal alone, but of will, faith and science lost to time. They are a mausoleum of forbidden truths and vanquished terrors, stretching down into the bones of the mountain beneath the palace, beyond where light has ever touched. They are said to descend 81 sub-levels deep. Each cell is unique, shaped not only to hold its inhabitant, but to counteract it. One chamber is frozen at absolute zero by a fusion of null tech and cryogenic relics. Another pulses with the dull hum of a psi-dampening core the size of a reactor. One, it is whispered, contains a vault within a vault, and within that a mirror, one that reflects not the viewer, but the viewer's death, endlessly, and what lies within. Some say they hold demons that refuse to die, who once warred with the Emperor himself, and whose essence he could not destroy, only contain. Others speak of alien intelligences from beyond the veil of stars, beings older than the galaxy, sealed in stasis because no death yet imagined could reach them. There are objects too, artifacts of such profound corruption that even proximity brings madness. Things like the Vox Stone, which speaks only lies, but each lie becomes truth if believed. Things like the Chain of Stars, a relic of the dark age of technology that manipulates probability to fatal effect. The custodians who guard this place, the shadowkeepers, do not speak of their vigil. They are the darkest of the 10,000, their golden armor shrouded in black, their eyes hooded with the burden of knowledge. They do not patrol in squads or battalions. They walk alone, one custodian per corridor, one soul to witness the burden of keeping such entities confined. The silence they endure is not only physical, it is psychic, spiritual. The vaults suppress not only noise but presence. The longer one remains within, the less they feel connected to the galaxy above. And yet, these vaults are alive in their own way. Not with movement, but with awareness. Some of the prisoners stir, not in body, for many have none, but in thought, in essence. They dream, perhaps, or scheme, or simply wait. There are no feeding troughs, no light, no speech, nothing to mark time but the shuffling of armored feet and the quiet hiss of environmental systems keeping the living separate from the dead. It is said that one such prisoner, unnamed, unnumbered, once sighed, and 6 custodians standing 3 corridors away bled from their ears and wept for 3 days, their minds haunted by a sorrow that was not their own. They survived, but they never returned below. No record exists of how many inmates the dark cells hold. Some estimate dozens, others hundreds. One forbidden chronicle found in a ruined librarium vault during the scouring simply read, "All that we could not kill, we buried." That may be the truest statement of all. What few understand, and what none above dares speak, is that the dark cells are not simply a prison. They are a pressure valve. The Emperor, in his infinite design, knew that the universe could never be fully cleansed of the ancient evils that predated even his own rise. Some could be destroyed, some outwitted, but others had to be locked away, buried not just physically, but metaphysically, cut off from the warp, from time, from fate itself. But locks can decay, wards can falter, and in time everything waits to be found again. There are stories, too few to be verified, too frightening to dismiss, of things that were once locked away and are now no longer there. One such tale tells of a custodian who entered the lower cell levels during the Great Rift's eruption, only to find a cell open. The door still sealed, the wards still active, but the presence gone. Nothing escaped. Nothing destroyed the locks. The entity, whatever it was, had simply left, as if it had never been there to begin with. The idea terrifies the custodians more than the entity itself. For if even the most secure vault in existence cannot be relied upon, then the Imperium's foundations are more fragile than anyone dares believe. No official record is kept of these incidents. They are not spoken of during war councils. The Inquisition has no authority over the vaults, and even the High Lords of Terra speak of them only in metaphor, if at all. To give them form in speech is to risk acknowledging what they are and what might be done to retrieve what is lost, for that is perhaps the greatest dread of the dark cells. Not that something might escape, but that someone someday might go looking. There are fools in the galaxy who would dare such a thing. Heretic archmagos seeking forbidden knowledge. Rogue inquisitors convinced that power locked away is power wasted. Even fallen space marines, once loyal sons of the Emperor, have plotted to breach the vaults. None have succeeded. All have died. But what they sought remains, hidden in the dark beneath the golden throne, forgotten by all, guarded by the few, and feared by the wise. The dark cells are not legend. They are real. They are now. They are always. And they are never, ever empty. Before the stars of the Imperium had names, before Terra wore its mantle of gold and blood, and long before the Emperor sat upon the golden throne, there was only darkness. Not the darkness of ignorance or superstition, but of annihilation. The age of strife. A time when warp storms blanketed the galaxy, isolating planets and unmaking civilizations. A time when the machines of the Dark Age turned upon their makers. A time when psychers bloomed like malign flowers across humanity, untrained, possessed, and broken. It was in this furnace of terror and ruin that the Emperor began his great work. And it was then, in the shadow of his earliest wars, that the vaults of Rythin were born. This was not a vault in the way we understand them today. Not a standardized chamber, lined with sigils and sensor arrays, but a crude, arcane place, a proto-prison, a series of hollows carved deep beneath the foundations of what would one day become the Imperial Palace. In those days, the Himalaya mountain range had not yet been fully tamed. Beneath its fractured roots, vast geothermal fissures and tectonic caverns offered concealment from the horrors above, and a crucible in which the Emperor could begin containing the worst of what he found. The name Rython is almost certainly apocryphal. Some sources claim it was the name of a fallen technocratic city-state that once sat atop those mountains, whose leadership delved too deep into psyker experimentation. Others suggest Rythin was one of the Emperor's earliest generals, one who defied him, sided with warp-tainted mutants, and had his name cursed by being eternally bound to the place where the remnants of his folly were buried. Whether the name comes from a traitor, a city, or something darker still, is irrelevant. What matters is that the vaults of Rythin were humanity's first graveyard of forbidden power. In these hollowed places, the Emperor deposited the first of his burdens. These were not trophies. They were not victories. They were defeats, things he could not destroy. The warp beasts that consumed minds rather than bodies. The broken AIs from the dark age of technology, whose logic spirals had led them to redefine human as error. The devices too potent to use, but too self-aware to leave unattended. Among the earliest entries into the vaults was a singing cube, no larger than a clenched fist, that emitted a continuous hymn in a language no living creature spoke. Every man who heard it fell into a coma within hours. Every psyker who touched it was instantly lobotomized, not from force, but from comprehension. The cube now lies in one of the deepest chambers, its song muffled by null vaults and psychic shields. It sings still. There was also the Anlace engine, a blade that bled when exposed to starlight. When it first came into the Emperor's possession, pried from the corpse of a would-be messiah in the deep deserts of Sibiric, it screamed, not aloud but through thought into every mind around it. The screams never ceased until it was buried beneath 6 kilometers of stone, sanctified steel, and psychic silencing runes. Even now, some say it still weeps. In the days of the Unification Wars, the vaults became more than a dumping ground. They became an arsenal of impossibility, a contingency. The Emperor, long before the warp opened its jaws fully, understood a fundamental truth of existence. Some victories must be forgotten to be preserved. That meant silence. That meant secrecy. Only the Emperor, Malkador the Sigillite, and a bare handful of his closest custodians knew what was being interred beneath the palace. Not the Space Marine Legions, not the primarchs, not even the Mechanicum. The vaults of Rythan were not bound by dogma or decree. They existed only because the Emperor willed them to. They were a physical expression of his greatest burden, that no matter how powerful, even a god-king could not cleanse the universe entirely. He could only lock its filth in a box and pray it never opened. There is one story, unconfirmed, unacknowledged, but recorded in the restricted memologs of the Order Invisus, that speaks of a failed attempt to destroy the vaults, not by enemy forces, but by the Emperor himself. It is said that in the closing years of the Wars of Unity, the Emperor returned from a campaign in the Eastern Fringe, where he had confronted something so ancient, so alien, that even he could not comprehend it. In his fury, in his disgust, he sought to cleanse the vaults, to burn them, to end them. But when he descended into the vaults, alone and silent, he returned after a single Terran hour. His custodians said nothing. Malkador looked at him and simply nodded. The vaults remained. Whatever he saw down there reminded even him that destruction was not always an option, that some truths must remain buried, that some enemies must be held and never faced again. The most chilling legacy of the vaults of Rythan lies not in what they contain, but in how they were built. The technology used to construct them has long since been lost, hidden, or destroyed. Entire subsystems were designed using logic engines that no longer exist. The binding runes etched into the foundation stones respond only to the psychic imprint of the Emperor himself. Some of the vault doors are sealed with keys that are now alive, sentient constructs of biometal that sing in anticipation when brought near their lock, and scream if used for any other purpose. No new vaults have been added in the style of Rythan. Modern additions to the dark cells follow different design philosophies, more mechanized, more secure in theory, but somehow less absolute. The Rythan cells are a breed apart. They were meant to last until the end of time, and perhaps in their silence they will. What became of Rythan, the name, the concept, the legend? It faded. Faded the way wounds do when cauterized. Faded like blood in the soil of a battlefield, so old no one remembers the war. But the vaults remain, hidden beneath newer structures, beneath reinforced corridors and deeper security layers. The vaults of Rhython are now only one section of the dark cells. But to the custodians who walk those halls, especially the oldest among them, those who remember the Emperor before the heresy, those who still bear his voice in their minds, Rhython is still sacred. They say the deepest level of the dark cells bears no number, that the elevator controls for it have no button, that to descend to Rhython one must speak a word, a true name, carved into the palm of your soul by the Emperor's hand. No one knows how many have done it. Fewer still return. There are no prisoners moved in or out, no cell doors ever opened. The entities inside were sealed by the Emperor himself. They will remain there until the stars go out, or until the vaults are broken, whichever comes first. And so, the vaults of Rhython endure, a monument to a forgotten time, a warning, a prison without light or hope. The first stones laid in the foundation of an Imperium built not only on conquest, but on containment. Because before the Imperium could grow, before it could claim the stars, the Emperor first had to bury the past, and he buried it deep. There are places in the galaxy where no sound should ever echo, where the air is so still, so tightly held in place by unseen pressure, that even a whisper would feel like a blasphemy. The dark cells beneath the Imperial Palace are such a place, and those who walk there, those who watch, do so in absolute silence. This is not the silence of fear or reverence. It is a cultivated stillness, like a blade honed to razor perfection. A silence that serves a purpose, that keeps horrors dreaming rather than waking. It is the silence of the shadowkeepers, the most secretive of the Adeptus Custodes, and the only living souls permitted to tread where the rest of the galaxy dare not even look. You will not find the names of the shadowkeepers in the archives. No honors are recorded, no oaths made public. If the custodes are myth wrapped in gold, then the shadowkeepers are ghosts carved from night. They wear no finery, they bear no laurels. Their armor is blackened gold, dulled and muted, the bright surface treated with alchemical dusts to swallow light instead of reflect it. The sigils of their station, a key crossed by a chain always in crimson, are carved into their left pauldrons, never painted. Paint can be scraped away. What they guard must never be erased. The Shadowkeepers are not chosen, they are assigned. When a custodian is found wanting, not for failure but for excess, he is offered the key. Sometimes it is a flaw, too much ruthlessness, too much fire in the soul. Other times it is quietness mistaken for coldness. In truth, none know the logic behind these assignments, but the Captain General himself. The vaults call to certain custodians, the ones who will not flinch, the ones who can stand unblinking while something old and hateful stares through 3 meters of plasteel and still wants their name. Each Shadowkeeper bears one key, just one. It is said that when they are initiated, they are brought to a black chamber deep beneath the Hall of Leng, where rows upon rows of ancient keys hang suspended in stasis. Each key hums faintly, and when a custodian enters the room, one key will vibrate in resonance with their soul. That key becomes theirs. It does not open any specific door. Rather, it opens only one, and the door is always a secret. The vaults trust them, or perhaps the Emperor does. It is difficult to overstate the gravity of what the Shadowkeepers do. The Custodes are the greatest warriors the Imperium has ever forged. Each one could, and often has, slain entire warbands alone. But war is simple compared to the Watch. War is a dance of fury, timing, and blood. The dark cells are an act of meditation, of restraint held in constant tension. The enemy is not charging, not speaking, not threatening. The enemy waits. That is what makes it worse. Many of the entities sealed in the dark cells cannot be destroyed. But some, and this is the part most never consider, can be spoken to. They are still aware. Not alive, not by most definitions, but conscious. There are vaults that whisper. There are vaults that sing. One, it is said, simply knocks, once every 13 hours, always at the same pitch. The noise is harmless, but every custodian who hears it feels the same urge to answer, just once, just to see. And so the shadowkeepers rotate shifts with fanatical precision. No one watches that door more than twice in a month. No one is allowed to grow curious. The halls are not labeled. There are no signs, no lights. Each custodian learns the layout in darkness, by count of steps, by the texture of stone beneath their boots. Some carry torches, not of fire, but of structured light, beams that shine in wavelengths calibrated to not disturb the vaults. Others prefer total blackness. They move by sound, by memory, by instinct. Some say their senses evolve to accommodate the silence, that they learn to feel shifts in pressure from 3 corridors away. Whether that is true or just legend whispered by acolytes trying to understand their masters, no one knows. Their weapons are specialized. Regular guardian spears and castellan axes are issued, but each shadowkeeper carries a personal relic, forged in secret, blessed in shadow. One carries a sword that weeps acid, another bears a gauntlet inscribed with null runes that stuns even warp entities on contact. One, known only as Alvis of the Narrow Eye, wields a glaive made from the spine of a slain demon prince, encased in sigillite and inscribed with runes of absolute unbeing. Each of these weapons has a name, but the names are never spoken. To do so would risk awakening the memories inside them. The Shadowkeepers do not speak during their duties. Communication is silent, gestures, blinks, the brief flick of a finger against armor. Language is permitted only once per shift, when the senior custodian recites the vigil's oath at the central convergence. The oath is always the same. Let this be our silence. Let this be our chain. Let no name pass. Let no lock fail. We are the will that holds the gate. We are the shadow before the end. After that, there is no speech. Not until the next rotation. This ritual has held for 10,000 years, but even the unspoken grows heavy. There have been breakdowns. A custodian, one who served without fault for over 3 centuries, was once found kneeling before an empty cell, muttering nonsense in a voice not his own. He had torn out his Vox implant and driven his blade into his own abdomen, without once breaking the rhythm of his chant. He survived, but he never returned to the vaults. They say his key was melted down, and the metal used to reinforce the lock he had failed to guard. These are not tales meant to scare. They are warnings. The dark cells do not merely contain the imprisoned, they test the jailers. The silence wears on the mind. The presence of what lies within presses against the soul like a weight you don't know you're carrying until you've put it down. Once, a new recruit to the Shadowkeepers asked how he would know if the thing in the cell was trying to escape. The senior custodian, an ancient warrior whose eyes were gray with disuse, simply said, "You won't. That's when you'll fail." The philosophy of the Shadowkeepers is not one of conquest. It is endurance. They do not seek battle. They do not glory in the destruction of monsters. Their task is simpler and crueler. Keep it all inside. There are no rewards, no honors, no laurels. Some custodians spend centuries in the vaults without speaking to another living being. When their service ends, if it ever does, they are changed, not corrupted, not broken, but made quieter, more deliberate. One former Shadowkeeper who joined a battlefield detachment refused to leave his transport until nightfall. When asked why, he simply said, "Too much light. Things grow bold in light." The Emperor chose them not for their strength alone, but for their willingness to stand in the dark and not be moved. In many ways, they are the Emperor's most faithful instruments, not because they love him more, but because they understand what he buried and why it must never be unearthed. And so the Shadowkeepers walk their endless rounds, one step, one breath, one eternal hour at a time. The lights do not flicker, the air does not stir. The monsters remain behind their locks, and the wardens, unseen, unsung, remain in the dark. For 10,000 years the dark cells held, 10,000 years of silence, dread, and absolute control. In all that time, not one true breach had been recorded. There were incidents, anomalies, fluctuations, but never failure, never escape, until the sky split in two. It began not in the depths of the palace, but in the stars. The Cicatrix Maledictum, the great rift, tore across the galaxy like a wound made by a god's claw. The warp screamed. Real space howled. On thousands of worlds, reality ceased to function as it once had. Ships vanished. Empires fractured. Planets fell to madness. And at the heart of it all, the cradle of mankind, Terra itself, shuddered under a pressure it had not felt since the Horus heresy. But while the surface burned with riots, psychic storms, and the crashing of orbital debris, something far worse stirred in the foundation below. The breach was not announced. No siren sounded. No alarm rang through the great halls. For a moment, perhaps a second or an hour, time twisted that day. The wards simply went dark. Each cell in the dark vaults is sealed not only by locks and physical barriers, but by layered psychic fields, runes of containment, temporal stabilizers, stasis anchors, null matter cages, and more besides. These systems are built redundantly, mirroring each other in vast hierarchies. There should have been no way, under any circumstances, for all of them to fail simultaneously. And yet they did. The records, what little remains, as most were sealed or purged, refer to it as the moment of scream. Those within the dark cells recall hearing a pressure shift, like the sky collapsing inward, followed by a scream without sound, so deep it was felt in bone and blood rather than heard. Lights dimmed, the air grew thick, and then the silence, that sacred silence the Shadowkeepers had preserved for millennia, was broken. The vaults shook. A custodian named Cerilion Octus, assigned to the 8th sublevel, reported that 5 doors blinked, one moment shut, the next flickering like images in a corrupted vid feed. Of those 5, 3 were empty. No damage to the locks, no tampering, just gone. Elsewhere, the psi barrier surrounding an entity labeled Dreamer Passive shattered like glass. The stasis field unraveled, not slowly but in reverse, as if time itself had vomited the creature back into motion. What emerged was not the creature's true form, that was never observed, but a waking nightmare, an eruption of mist and sound and scent that induced waking paralysis in 2 custodians and a group of Sisters of Silence performing calibration rites 3 levels up. One sister survived long enough to report, "The sky was watching me from underground," before dying from catastrophic neural liquefaction. On the 11th sublevel, a vault previously marked non-responsive, meaning its contents were never successfully identified, opened inward. Not mechanically, not through sabotage. It simply opened. The room behind it was dark in a way no light could penetrate. No living custodian entered. An automated Auspex drone was dispatched. It did not return. When the feed was recovered days later, its final transmission was 12 seconds of static, followed by the slow emergence of a shadow shaped like a human hand, stretching outward. Not from the door, but from the feed itself. The machine was found crushed into itself, its internal components folded like paper. The vault was resealed using a retributive lockdown, which flash-purged 2 corridors and collapsed the surrounding support structures to entomb the breach. To this day, the vault is marked as sealed by void clause, meaning no attempt will be made to open it again, ever. But not all incidents were contained. During the chaos, a group of chaos cultists, their presence on Terra unexplained, their infiltration into the palace untraceable, penetrated as far as the sub-level 6 archive wing. There, under cover of the planetary upheaval, they made for a single containment cell, marked with a red-edged Imperial sigil denoting level Omega Prohibita, one of the few items too dangerous to be even listed in the Librarius Cryptae. The vault's occupant, a chalice, a simple cup, black as the void between stars, the chalice of dark alabaster. The cultists reached it. They did not survive the retrieval. But they were not meant to. They were bait. Sacrificial distractions meant to draw fire while a secondary infiltrator, cloaked in null technology and bound psyker flesh, moved through the breach unseen. That figure, whose identity remains classified beyond Primarch level clearance, took the chalice and left. Shadowkeeper Arian Porphyrius arrived moments too late. What he found was carnage, custodians slain, their armor sundered, their flesh weeping ink, and the vault open, its occupant gone. Porphyrius didn't speak. He simply turned and left, gathering his squad and departing Terra without orders. He would spend the next year chasing the chalice across the stars. His fate is another tale. Back on Terra, the damage was spreading. Psychic harmonics across the vaults were destabilized, whole floors warped, not collapsed, warped as though spatial geometry had come unmoored. Custodians found themselves walking endless corridors that should have ended in 30 meters. Lights turned against them. Machinery dreamed, and the worst was yet to come. One vault, Cell 403 B-Axis, was empty, its lock undisturbed, its containment seals unbroken, its psychic chains intact. And yet the prisoner was gone, not escaped, not broken out, simply absent, as if it had never been there at all. The records refuse to name this inmate. Not even a designation number is given, but a margin note written in the blood of a custodian who died of heart failure mid-report reads, "It woke up and remembered it could leave." The surviving Shadowkeepers enacted full dark cell lockdown, initiating the Null Protocol, the highest emergency procedure possible. All access corridors were sealed with phase gates. Entire rooms were phased out of alignment with the Imperium, locked into subspace pockets, so that even if a vault failed, there would be no path out. They knew this was not an attack. Not in the traditional sense. It was something worse. It was a shift. The Emperor, bound upon the Golden Throne, poured what remained of his will into reinforcing the Astronomicon. But even his light could not reach every shadow. The ripple effect from the Great Rift had destabilized laws that had been unshakable for millennia. The dark cells were built for a universe governed by structure, hierarchy, and stable reality. But the galaxy had changed, and in that moment, that one moment of cosmic imbalance, some of the vaults simply failed. In the aftermath, many vaults were resealed. New rituals were developed. The Adeptus Mechanicus wept to see some of the lost technologies that had been deployed in haste to stop the containment failures. Ancient automatons reawakened. Forgotten hierotech flared into life and then burned out, sacrificing themselves to hold a line. But not all was recovered. Of the hundreds of vaults sealed within the dark cells, 11 were confirmed breached. 5 were resecured. 2 were reduced to nothing but ash and null radiation. 4 remain unaccounted for. No one knows what escaped. Not exactly, not officially. But rumors have begun to circulate among rogue traders and exodite wanderers. Worlds that die screaming, systems whose suns dim and do not recover. Ships found adrift with crews smiling, dead, arms folded in reverent awe. And the whispers, always the whispers, of things that should not be awake walking among the stars once more. The shadowkeepers do not speak of it. They patrol with renewed vigilance, with new weapons, with fewer numbers. The breach changed them. Before they were keepers of a prison, now they are hunters, because the vaults no longer hold every secret, and what has escaped still remembers where it came from, and one day it may try to come home. They called it Dream Snare, but that was only after it escaped. Before then, it had no name, just a number, a containment designation lost in vault rot and redacted sigils. Some still refuse to call it anything at all, as if naming it invites its attention. It lived, if such a word can even apply, in Vault 17 Beta, deep in the 14th sublevel of the Dark Cells. The location wasn't particularly unusual, nor was the containment chamber itself. Standard layered null wardings, internal stasis, psychic baffles etched into every micron of metal, a singularity anchor set into the flooring. On paper, a textbook cell, not even marked for critical oversight, but the creature inside was not textbook. The slithering dreamer, as the legends now call it, was not a demon. It bore no allegiance to the Chaos Gods, no traceable warp resonance signature, no linguistic pattern to its psychic emissions. In fact, it had never spoken at all. Not directly. It didn't need to. It existed in the realm of the subconscious, not invading thoughts, but drifting into the spaces between them. A parasite of the dream state, a feeder on the border between sleep and waking, a creature that grew fat on forgotten fears. When it was first captured, sometime during the latter years of the Great Crusade, the Emperor himself issued a sealed writ forbidding any psyker from attempting mental contact with it. No explanation was given. Only a single line scrawled at the bottom of the order in ink blacker than sin. It listens from behind the eyelids. Those words were found burned into the cortex of the first astropath who tried to scry it. No visual records exist of the entity in its dormant state. The only image recovered, and that term is generous, is a distorted psychic impression pulled from a Sister of Silence who collapsed near Vault 17 Beta in M38. A swirling serpentine shape, like a river of ink in zero gravity, wrapped around 1,000 tiny masks. The masks all bore the same face, hers. Every expression was frozen mid-scream. The slithering dreamer had been asleep in its cell for thousands of years, until the breach. The null fields that kept its essence anchored to the physical plane faltered during the cicatrix event. It didn't break free, it didn't smash its way out, it simply stopped being inside. The vault door remained closed, sealed, unmarked. But when a custodian patrol made its scheduled pass, the stasis readings read 0. Internal motion scanners flatlined, emotional bleed, null. No presence, no dreaming, nothing. The dreamer was gone. The shadowkeepers were horrified, not because it had escaped, but because they had no idea how. Everything else that had breached the cells, the screaming artifacts, the chalice, the mind thralls, had done so with force, treachery, or warp anomaly. The slithering dreamer left no trace, just absence. Like waking from a nightmare and realizing your dream had come with you into the real world. The first signs of its return were not noticed by the Imperium at all. They began on Tarnus 4, an unremarkable industrial moon orbiting a dying star in the Lycian Reach. A place of cogitator mines and refinery cities, with a population too beaten by routine to question their own exhaustion. But then the dreams started. Not vivid, not violent. Familiar. People began dreaming of old homes they had never lived in, of children they never had, of lovers who whispered things in forgotten tongues. productivity crashed, suicides spiked, entire hab blocks stopped reporting for work. The moon's Adeptus Arbites sent in interrogators. They went silent. A planetary governor requested psychic support. He was found weeping in his bath, blind and catatonic. Word reached Terra through a flagged black ship transmission. The ship's astropaths, those that could still speak, begged for a single name to be sent. Gao, Jehar Feldorus Gao, shield captain of the Shadowkeepers, one of the few living custodians to have stood watch outside Vault 17 Beta for more than a century. He had always seemed different, they said, quiet even among the silent. His key had turned cold in the month before the breach. Gao answered the summons without ceremony. He arrived on Tarnus 4 alone. The void ship that carried him dropped from the warp directly above the moon's surface, ignoring local gravity mooring protocols. When questioned, its pilot, a servo skull encoded with Gao's soul print, simply repeated the phrase, "The key knows the lock." The shield captain descended to the moon's equatorial hive, entering the dream-sick city with no support. What he found was not horror, not destruction, just silence and smiles. Tens of thousands of workers, citizens, scribes, and soldiers stood quietly in the streets. Their eyes were closed, their faces serene. They were dreaming, upright, a field of human statues lost in an invisible lullaby. Gao walked among them, his black gold armor glinting against the moon's dying sun, until he reached the center square. There, in the plaza's heart, something slithered through the air, not in motion but in presence. It shimmered like oil, twisted like sleep paralysis, and whispered in a voice made from every voice. "We knew you'd come. We never left." No one saw what happened next. The audio from Gao's armor record is corrupted. 17 minutes of static and guttural hums. Visuals are worse. Blurred shapes, patterns repeating in frames that don't match. A final image of a spear of light cutting through black fog, and a dozen masks screaming in unison. When transmission resumed, Gao was standing alone. The dreamers were waking, disoriented, confused, alive. The dreamer was gone. Its presence had been slain or at least exorcised. Gao returned to Terra 2 months later, silent as ever. His armor bore a new inscription in High Gothic. To dream again is to risk becoming prey. He never spoke of what he saw, but others whispered that he had struck a blow not at a being, but at a pattern, a dream that had become self-aware, that he had willed himself into the dream and hunted it there, killing it inside its own reality. Was it destroyed? The custodians say yes, but they changed the seals on Vault 17 Beta. They didn't remove them. They doubled them. Some threats are slain, some are sealed, but the worst are the ones that remember your thoughts. And the slithering dreamer was one such nightmare. It did not hate, it did not hunger. It simply watched, waiting for your guard to lower, your eyelids to close. And then it slithered back inside you, not through flesh, but through the gate you leave open every night when you fall asleep. The vault is sealed now. Again. But when a Shadowkeeper patrols past it in the dark, some swear they still hear. Breathing. Software steady. Dreaming. There is a cell in the deepest sub-level of the dark cells, far beneath even the shadow-drenched halls that echo with demonic presence and cursed relics. Its location is known to only a handful, not just among the custodians, but among all the Imperium. It has no identifying mark, no sigil of classification, no runic warning of psychic contamination. It doesn't glow, it doesn't pulse, it doesn't even hum with the ambient tension that fills the rest of the vaults. It is quiet, still, almost expectant. Within it, something waits. It is not an artifact, not a monster, not some riddle of ancient xeno-sorcery. It is a person, or at least something that once was. The custodial records, the real ones, not the layered fabrications used to mislead even inquisitors, refer to this prisoner only as Subject 11. No title, no lineage, no crimes listed. Just two stark characters etched into obsidian data slates in blood-red ink. 11. To understand why this is terrifying, one must understand Imperial history, or more precisely, Imperial silence. There were 20 primarchs, 20 gene-forged sons created by the Emperor in the vaults of Luna and the genetic cathedrals of Terra to lead his legions across the stars and bring unity to a shattered species. 18 of them are known. Their names are carved into marble halls and sung in victory litanies. Horus, Guilliman, Sanguinius, Angron, Lorgar. But 2 were not. The 2nd and 11th legions were struck from Imperial records during the Great Crusade, purged, forgotten, not in defeat, but in totality. Their symbols erased, their histories redacted. Even their names were forbidden. No scroll, no hololith, no vox record dares speak of them. Among the Legions Astartes, there are only whispers. Those who dare voice them, battle brothers who drink too much amasec in the dark corners of starships, call them the Forgotten Sons. And even in those moments, even in the fevered mutterings of warriors who have fought demons and heretics and survived the heresy itself, no one dares ask the one question they all think: what happened to them? No one knows for certain, but Subject 11 might be the answer. No data slate confirms it. No custodian will speak to it. But there are signs. First, the cell's dimensions, precisely 3.2 meters in width, 7 meters in length, and 5 meters in height. An odd configuration unless one considers the spatial tolerance required for a fully grown transhuman male, taller than any mortal, larger than any space marine. The room was clearly not made to contain a relic or ethereal entity. It was made to house a body. Second, the stasis field inside is not fixed. It shifts. Most vaults maintain a constant temporal lock to preserve their contents, a perfect bubble in time. But Cell 11's stasis field recalibrates every 33 Terran hours. A slow pulse, as though the cell itself adjusts to its occupants' movements. Yes, movements. For Subject 11 is not dead, not even asleep, merely dormant. It is said, though none will verify it, that once every 100 days, the internal scanners record a breath. A single inhale, not drawn through lungs, but through something else. Like the entire vault holds its air in fear, waiting to be exhaled. And that is why, above all else, the cell terrifies the shadowkeepers, because something inside is alive, and yet forgotten. Who is Subject 11? The theories are many. That he is the lost primarch, one of the Emperor's early prototypes, twisted beyond recognition. That he was born flawed, too aggressive, too unstable, and sealed away before the legions ever marched. That his brothers feared him. That he betrayed the Emperor before even Horus, and thus had to be erased completely. But then there is the darker theory. Not that he failed, but that he succeeded too well. Some believe Subject 11 was the first among the primarchs to reach the edge of the Emperor's plan. Not to lead, not to conquer, but to ascend. That he was the first to breach that final threshold between man and God. And the Emperor, for all his vision, could not allow it. Not yet. Not then. Perhaps not ever. So he was locked away, not in hatred, not even in punishment, but in fear. Because what, after all, could frighten the master of mankind? Only a reflection, only a mirror that dares stare back. There is an old, buried log found only once, a remnant of the Sigillites' private journals, scoured by time and warp corruption. A single entry remains legible, faded and fragmented, but clear enough. He still dreams. I have seen them, not of war nor of conquest, but of fire, not the burning kind, but the fire that melts truth, that leaves no bones in the soul. He asked me why we lie to them. I had no answer. Malcador, if it was him, did not elaborate, but the vault remained. The prisoner remained, and the silence around him has only grown louder. No custodian is permanently assigned to cell 11. The rotation is random, unpredictable. Even the most senior shadowkeepers are kept from growing too accustomed to the corridor. The idea is simple: no familiarity, no pattern, no connection. As if the mere act of forming a ritual around the cell might give the thing inside leverage. And yet, there are signs that it still affects the world. One custodian, a veteran of 3 Black Crusade incursions, one of the Emperor's own hand-picked wardens, walked his shift outside cell 11, stood for his allotted span, and then left without a word. 3 days later, he returned to the vault on his own accord and set himself on fire before the cell door. He said nothing. He left no note. Only his ashes remained. The vault didn't open, didn't move. But as the fire burned, the cell's internal pressure monitors spiked. Just once, as if deep inside something had drawn breath. There are whispers now, even among the highest echelons of the custodes, that something is changing, that the being inside is no longer content to dream, that the era of secrets may be ending. The dark cells have held wars, weapons, monsters, even gods. But Subject 11 is different, because he is kin, because he is forgotten but not erased, because he is remembering. And when he wakes, the Imperium will have to remember too. There are prisoners within the dark cells who wear no chains, not because they do not need them, but because chains do not work, not on things like these. Among the most feared contents of the vaults are not artifacts, not demigods, not rogue primarchs or nameless horrors from forgotten eras, but demons. True demons, not the kind that rampage through war zones with fire and blood, their forms fluctuating in the warp storm chaos of real space battles. No, the entities kept here are older, deeper, and more concentrated in their essence. Not the soldiers of the dark gods, but their lingering shadows, their whispers made flesh. 2 such beings are held in separate vaults, locked behind metaphysical seals that warp the air around them. Not because they can escape, but because even their presence leaks. They are known only by titles. Even the shadowkeepers do not speak these names aloud. It that craves. One of the fellows let us begin with the first. It that craves does not hunger for food, nor drink, nor flesh in the literal sense. It desires experiences, but not just its own. Yours. It that craves was first encountered during the unification of the Athenial wastes in the final years of Old Night, when a series of isolated techno-cults began self-destructing, one after the other. At first, it seemed like mere civil collapse, but as expeditionary custodes began to investigate, they found something far more disturbing. Entire citadels filled with corpses, all smiling, all mutilated, many of them having inflicted the damage upon themselves, scars mapped in spirals, tongues removed and placed on altars, internal organs strung like garlands across shrines of tarnished chrome, and at the heart of each cult ruin, a mirrored obelisk, roughly 2 meters tall, humming with a rhythmic cadence like a heartbeat in reverse. The Emperor sent no message, no declaration of war, only silence. Then he descended into the ruins himself. None know exactly what happened there, only that, hours later, he emerged with a shard of black crystal, bound in null chain and stasis lock, cradled in his hands like a dying child. He did not speak of it again. That crystal, still warm with psychic pressure, was entombed in the dark cells. placed within a sarcophagus of void glass, suspended inside a field of absolute sensory deprivation. No sight, no sound, no feeling, nothing to crave. But even now, thousands of years later, the vault is not still. Custodians report sensations while standing outside it. Not movement, not sound, just emotion, longing, need, desire. They feel it clawing at the edges of their thoughts, not with words but with temptation, offering to show them what they miss most, promising to share their memories, only for a moment, only for a taste. The bravest custodians, those who walk that corridor on rotation, leave behind iron-willed and scarred, not from battle, from resistance. The worst part, the crystal does not speak, it just listens. And every time someone thinks of what they most want, a lost lover, a forgotten triumph, a parent's face, they know, somehow, that it that craves is watching, not through eyes, but through the mirror of memory. They say if that crystal ever broke, the thing inside wouldn't rampage, it wouldn't kill, it would just offer, and that would be enough. Because there are few things more dangerous than something that can show you your perfect moment and then make you need it again. Then there is one of the fell. If it that craves is a whisper of slain Esh, then one of the fell is a thing without allegiance, a stranger among monsters. The story of its capture is buried in the Librarius Obscura, sealed under so many encryptions that even inquisitorial high lords cannot access it. But fragments survive in reports of worlds gone blind, of skies cracking open, not with light, but with absence, of people speaking in other people's voices, claiming things no one should know. The first confirmed sighting was in the Vandium collapse during the last century of Ima 33, a world where psychers began vomiting scripture in unknown dialects, where echoes preceded footsteps, where machines bled and flesh turned to code. It took a full cohort of the Sisters of Silence, a dozen Null Magi from the Ordo Malleus, and 5 custodians to contain what they found. They never saw it, only its effect. And when the battle ended, only one custodian remained. He carried with him a cube of black stone, inside which sat a coil of flesh, ever shifting, like a Mobius strip made of veins. It pulsed in silence. It was given no name. But on the cube's outer casing, scratched by an unknown force, were the words, "I am one of the Fell." Since then, the title has stuck. No one knows what the Fell are, whether they are a species, a brotherhood, a cabal, or simply the fragments of something larger. But this creature, this thing, is not dormant. It speaks, not aloud, but in dreams, in static, in magnetic resonance. A series of Adeptus Mechanicus adepts, working in a data core 2 levels above its vault, went mad within hours. When their machine spirit logs were recovered, everyone had a file tagged FELLL, 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 A custodian assigned to monitor the vault's resonance fields developed glossolalia, spontaneous speaking of unknown tongues, or within a week. His last intelligible sentence was, "I think it's remembering for me." Then he clawed out his own tongue and swallowed it. One of the Fel is not aggressive. It doesn't rage or tempt. It simply waits. It seems patient, as though it knows time favors it, as though whatever it is, whatever it wants, has already happened. We're just catching up. Amagos once proposed destroying it, suggested it be cast into the heart of Sol, or jettisoned into the maelstrom. The custodians did not respond. They simply locked down the proposal, erased the Magos' name from all records, and redacted the cogitation cluster where he had presented it. Why? Because some things are not kept because they're indestructible. Some things are kept because destroying them would be worse. Perhaps it is a key. Perhaps it is a lock. Or maybe, just maybe, it is the memory of something that should not exist, and to forget it completely would be to remember it too well. Both of these demons, for what else can we call them, remain entombed, not because we are safe from them, but because we are not ready. The dark cells do not just hold the threats that can burn planets. They hold the ones that burn meaning, that twist the soul, the self, the idea of identity. It that craves wants your joy. One of the Fel wants. No one knows. But in the end, both share a single truth. They have been seen, and being seen by something eternal is never a one-way exchange. There are poisons too virulent to burn, curses that do not whisper but rot. And in the darkest halls of the vaults beneath the Imperial Palace, there exist relics that fester not with malice, but with a grotesque affection. These are not things that seek to destroy, not immediately. No, their desire is intimacy, to enter, to dwell, to thrive within the crevices of flesh and thought, spreading like mold beneath a wall you never knew was cracked. Two such prisoners lie in the putrid wing of the dark cells, a series of vaults sealed not with silence but with flame. Even the corridors that lead to them stink of burned incense and chemical antiseptics. The walls sweat. Not water, not oil, something else, something yellow and thick, wiped clean every hour by servitor priests who do not live more than a year. They never speak. They cannot. Their tongues are cut upon induction, their eyes replaced with augmetics that see only in sterilized light. They serve one function: containment. For within the cells at the end of those reeking halls lie two of the most wretched gifts ever crafted by the Lord of Decay. The first is called the Tri-Blight Amulet. The second, the sevenfold Tri-Miasma. Neither is large, neither screams, neither needs to. Let us begin with the amulet. It was recovered during a failed crusade in the late 35th millennium. A forge world, long thought lost, sent a distress call wrapped in static and untranslatable code. The Mechanicus petitioned Terra. The Adeptus Custodes answered. When they arrived, they found a planet hollowed out from the inside. No fire, no battle, just decay. Entire manufactorums reduced to piles of rusted bone, giant cogitators, kilometers across, coughing out corrupted scripture that read like nursery rhymes in reverse. And the people, gone, melted into the floors, into the walls, their clothes still arranged in social order, as if they'd simply slumped over in the middle of a conversation and become part of the scenery. At the center of it all, buried within a cooling tower overgrown with pus flesh and thorned ivy, was a shrine, made not by man but by disease. The pipes wept blood, the walls breathed, and floating above a pile of calcified spinal cords was a single cracked amulet. It looked unimpressive, simple bronze. 3 skulls intertwined in a triangle, each skull grinning, each one missing something. One had no eyes, one no nose, one no mouth. The custodians approached. They died. Not all, just enough to learn a pattern. The first who stepped close collapsed, choking on phlegm until his lungs slid out of his mouth. The second fell to his knees, giggling as rot bloomed from his armor seams and bubbled his brain through his ears. The third, he never moved, never fell. He simply turned to ash, no flames, no heat, just a quiet sigh, and he was dust on the wind. 3 warriors, 3 deaths, 3 plagues, the Tri-Blight. Each skull on the amulet corresponds to a different strain, not of natural disease, but divine infection. One decays the body, another corrupts the mind, and the last, well, no one agrees what the last one does. Some say it spreads to machines. Others say it affects time. One heretical theory claims it rewrites memories, infecting history itself. No proof exists. The custodes who retrieved the amulet refused to speak of what they saw, save for the phrase, "We took too long to get it out of the air." Since then, it has been stored in a triple-sealed cell, constantly bathed in sacred promethium and guarded by incineration servitors whose only task is to reduce anything nearby to ash if containment fails. The vault air is replaced every 60 seconds. The filters, changed daily. The corridor to that wing is lined with creed-laced tiles, their prayers etched so deep into the floor they cut your boots if you don't step carefully. And still, the vault smells, like damp cloth, like unwashed hands, like home. The sevenfold Trimiasma is worse, not because it's more potent, but because it is deliberate. If the Tri-Blight Amulet is a bomb that has already gone off, the Trimiasma is a toolkit. It was seized from the followers of a Nurgle-worshipping cult known as the Verdant Ascendants during the purging of Caracalla. A full inquisitorial conclave was dispatched to deal with the outbreak, which had reduced a planet of 8 billion to less than 3 million in the span of 6 weeks. No open war, no demonic invasion, just death. Slow, curious, instructive. The sevenfold Tri-Miasma was discovered in the depths of the Hive capital's undercroft, guarded by cult adepts who had fused into one another, forming a choir of diseased flesh that sang even after death. They had used the artifact, a rack of 7 crystal vials, each swirling with liquid too thick to be blood, in ritualistic sequences. Each vial corresponded to a plague moment, designed not just to kill, but to transform. Some caused blindness that evolved into second sight. Others withered muscle but enhanced tactile hallucination, causing victims to feel joy in agony. One particularly vile strain replaced the need for food with the desire to consume rotting speech. Individuals began eating books, scrolls, vocal cords, not for knowledge, for taste. The cult believed in enlightenment through decay, that to know the Emperor was to know his end. The Tremiasma was their sacred key. It was taken at great cost. The Sisters of Silence who accompanied the custodians died in silence, their throats swollen shut with boils that chanted the words, "He forgives you," in 27 dialects. The custodians themselves, even with all their resilience, left the world vomiting black mist that spoke. Their armor had to be ritually disassembled, burned, and reforged. One set refused to stop twitching. The Tremiasma now lies in Vault 49 Theta, kept in a rotating sarcophagus, a machine that constantly shifts the position of the vials so no pattern can form. It's warded by memory null fields. Anyone who observes it is required to take a mnemonic purge afterward to forget what they saw. Because it teaches. That's the problem. It doesn't just kill. It offers methods. The two relics are not connected in origin, but in intent, they are siblings. Where the Tri-Blight amulet annihilates identity, the Tri-Miasma reshapes it. Where one silences the choir, the other turns the choir into gods. And together they represent a threat the Inquisition fears more than demons. Belief in beautiful death. Because these artifacts do not demand obedience through terror, they promise peace. A peace found in pustule and rot, in coughing your soul out until nothing remains but laughter and disease. The Imperium does not speak of them. Officially, they do not exist. Unofficially, a custodian has gone missing once every 100 years since the Trimiasma was interred. They never return, but the vaults sometimes smell sweeter in the days after. The dark cells do not guard evil. They do not protect from war. They protect us from ideas. The idea that pain is divine, that disease is love, that death is growth. And the relics of Nurgle, the Tri-Blight amulet, and the sevenfold Trimiasma understand that. They wait not to escape. They wait to be understood. Beneath the surface of Terra, far below the sunlit spires and the thunder of the ecclesiarchal bells, lies a vault that does not hum or rot or breathe. It trembles, not violently, not enough to shake dust from the ceiling, but subtly, like a held breath that's never released. It is the trembling of thought under pressure. The vibration of sanity trying to hold shape in a place where meaning is under siege. This is not a place of beasts, nor demons, nor rotting gods. Here, in these steel coffins beneath the world, are things created by hands, made by men, invented, as if that word still carries innocence, by minds that sought not to destroy the Imperium's enemies, but to pierce the veil of truth itself. And they succeeded. Twice. They are named in the restricted records of the Lex Imperialis as Psi Detritus 1116A and Artifact 449 Vox Mortalis. But those who have seen their effects call them something else, the Lament of Unreason and the Soul Delver. They are instruments of madness, not just because they kill, but because they reveal. Let us begin with the Lament. The Lament of Unreason was not forged in some Xenos tomb or warp-tainted forge. It was built in the Mechanicus enclave of Noctavium 9, a research station orbiting a dead world in Segmentum Pacificus. The Magi there were tasked with exploring lost Vox patterns, experimental sonic architectures left behind from the dark age of technology. Their goal was simple: recover any forms of data transmission that could enhance long-range communication or improve encryption. They succeeded, and they went mad. The first signs were subtle. Vox priests began sleeping less, murmuring to themselves in their own static bursts. Then came the tonal mutations. Standard greetings spoken in reverse pitch, messages relayed in voices the senders didn't own. A visiting adept from Ryza filed a report that the station's chime, the simple signal bell that rang each hour, had begun to harmonize with itself. No one could explain what that meant. Then came the deaths, not violent, not loud, but eerie. Adept Gravius was found disassembled, not torn apart, but unmade, his flesh and augmetics carefully laid out across his workshop like a schematic. Magos Vernor recorded himself staring at a cogitator for 72 straight hours, whispering a single phrase. It's singing backwards, and now I understand the inside of my own skin. He then drove a scalpel into his eye and bled to death while humming. The Adeptus Mechanicus purged the station. Everything above a certain clearance level was scoured with orbital fire. Everything except the device at the center of it all. A box. Small, elegantly wrought. Vox grills laced with gold-trimmed runes. It resembled an ornate music box, except for the flesh-threaded pipes that sprouted from its rear. Veins of human and metal entwined, pulsing with a rhythm that matched no known biological pattern. The box made no sound. Not unless you listened. When the first custodian attempted to move it, he stopped halfway, knees locking as if caught in reverence. He spoke a single word, clarity, then began laughing, and never stopped. His voice box was later removed. The custodes named the device the Lament of Unreason, not because it made men weep, but because it played a song that unraveled the scaffolding of rationality itself. It does not shout. It does not pulse with raw chaos. It sings in silence, a note behind thoughts. Exposure to the lament, even from meters away, causes gradual destabilization of conceptual processing. Subjects begin questioning their own perceptions, seeing things reversed, interpreting cause and effect backwards. One archivist began rearranging historical records, stating that the siege of Terra had not yet happened but already been lost. He insisted the Emperor was still walking, just in the opposite direction. Even after confinement in the dark cells, the artifact had to be placed within a sound null crucible, a stasis cube wrapped in psychic baffles and anti-resonance coils. Yet even that may not be enough. The custodes say the vault ticks, not audibly, but in the back of the mind, as if some part of you is still hearing it, even when you've never heard it at all. And that's what makes it dangerous. Not the song, but the idea that there is a song you are already humming without realizing where you learned it. The Soul Delver is a different kind of horror, where the lament unravels thought, the Soul Delver harvests it. It was found during the aftermath of the Ares Primus Psychana Rebellion, a brief but terrifying uprising in M38 when astropaths and sanctioned psychers across the hive world began killing each other in structured patterns. Ritualized duels fought not for dominance, but for access. A black ship went silent. The sisters aboard were later found, intact, untouched, but with eyes clouded and tongues removed. Their minds were blank slates, not suppressed, not broken. Gone. Investigators tracked the cause to a hidden lab beneath the primary spire, where a rogue Magos biologist had allied with a renegade warpsmith from the Iron Warriors. Their goal was abhorrent, even by Hertech standards, the extraction of soul essence in physical form. The weapon was elegant and obscene. Imagine a scepter, long and thin, carved from obsidian and plated with wraithbone. Its head was a spider-like cluster of articulated needles, each tipped with psychically conductive crystal. When pressed to the skull of a psyker, the device emitted a high-pitched hum and siphoned the soul, strand by strand, weaving it into a golden resin that solidified like amber. Dozens of victims were found, some dead, some alive, their faces slack, their minds half absent, as if only part of them had been taken. One psyker, a child of 7, kept repeating, "She has my name. She has my name. She has my name." The resin collected was stored in canisters labeled Anima Samples 01 to 73. When the custodies arrived, the warpsmith fought to the last, roaring that the harvest must reach the eye. His final act was to stab himself in the throat with the device, whispering, "Let me be known." It took 3 custodians and 2 null adepts to disable the Soul Delver, not because it resisted, but because it called to them. One of the sisters said it smelled like the dreams of her dead mother. It now lies inert in a triple-sealed vault lined with null glass and thought-dampening barriers. But even so, it pulses, not visibly, but emotionally. The custodians who patrol near it report feelings of displacement, not pain, not fear, loss, a sense that something was taken from them, though they cannot say what. Some report a dull ache behind the eyes, others simply cry without understanding why. And always the same phrase echoes in their dreams, "You are not whole." But I can find the missing pieces. These are not weapons in the conventional sense. They do not explode. They do not slice. They do not wound the body. They unmake identity. They extract meaning. They are violence against selfhood. The lament of unreason does not kill. It rewrites reality in the mind until truth becomes song and logic becomes a prison of beautiful wrongness. The Soul Delver does not torture. It saves pieces of you like a collector preserves butterflies, pinned in place, admired, forever incomplete. The Imperium, for all its wars, is built on 2 pillars, faith and memory. These relics undermine both, and that is why they lie buried. Not because they are dangerous to the flesh, but because they are dangerous to what we are. Ideas, dreams, souls. These are sacred things in the age of the Imperium, and the vaults hold the knives made to carve them away. In most vaults, time is the jailer. Cells are measured by the ticking of chronos, rotations of Terra, pulses of stasis fields. Time is used to measure decay, behavior, failure. The march of seconds becomes proof of containment. But what happens when the prisoner is not merely a threat in time, but to time itself? What if the vault holds something not dangerous because of what it will do, but dangerous because of what it already has done, over and over, endlessly, from before it was captured to long after the galaxy burns? That prisoner lies in Cell Null Delta. Its title in the arcane records of the Custodes is simple, the Broken Clock. But the designation is misleading. There is no clock inside, no ticking, no gears, no dial. Only a figure, humanoid, robed in withered red, standing at the exact center of a spatially stabilized containment sphere, frozen mid-step. Not by choice and not by force. Rather because he has always been there and will always be there, locked in the moment of his capture like a fly in amber. But what makes the broken clock terrifying is not his motionless form. It is the fact that he was never meant to be there at all. Let me explain. The broken clock did not come from the past. He came from all of it. When he first appeared, or rather, when he was first recorded as appearing, it was on a world already considered lost. Yalthis, a dead moon orbiting the remains of an ancient Xenos war machine, long since rendered inert and quarantined. Imperial cartographs had logged it as uninhabitable, the atmosphere thick with gravitic distortions, temporal eddies, and residual psychic scar tissue. It was a place where time itself stuttered, where prayers arrived before they were spoken, and where explorers aged in reverse. An explorator team dispatched for artifact retrieval returned before they had left, and accompanying them was the figure. He did not speak. He carried no identification. He simply stood there in the landing bay of the explorator vessel, staring with eyes that never blinked, though the face they sat in changed every few hours. The Mechanicus called the Ordo Chronos, and the Ordo Chronos did what they always do. Panicked quietly, the figure was transported to Terra under a veil of absolute secrecy. Not even the Inquisition's black ships were used. Instead, a custodes vessel known as Quietus ad infinitum bore him home. A ship with no recorded warp signature. A ship that does not exist on any registry because it was never built. Only once he arrived did they attempt to classify him. And that's when the problems began. Every attempt to scan the figure yielded different results. Not over time, but simultaneously. Some reports labeled him human, others Xenos. Some read him as a corpse, others as a newborn. A null adept suffered a psychic embolism trying to form a concept of his age. One Sister of Silence vomited starlight for 17 minutes before entering catatonia. Eventually, the custodies stopped asking questions. They built Cell Null Delta instead. The vault is unlike any other in the dark cells. Rather than being designed to suppress danger, it was constructed to observe and not be observed. Its walls are lined with reality anchors, calibrated not to contain warp energy, but to maintain linear causality. Within its core floats the containment sphere, not stasis, but something more refined, a bubble of chronological inertia. Inside that bubble stands the broken clock, frozen mid-motion, mid-thought, mid-breath. He has not moved in over 6,000 years. And yet, he is seen elsewhere, not metaphysically, literally. Multiple confirmed sightings exist of the broken clock across the Imperium, not just dreams or hallucinations. Actual Vox footage, security logs, even paintings older than the Imperium itself. He has appeared among the crowd in a remembrancer's painting of Horus's triumph at Ulanor, in the background of an Inquisition surveillance vid on Armageddon 5 centuries ago, etched faintly into a pillar on Macrage, a structure carved 3,000 years before Guillemon's birth. Reflected in a broken lens recovered from Prospero after the 1,000 suns fell. Every image shows the same pose, the same step, the same face, and always the same clock embedded in his chest, a sundial with no shadow, a chronometer that does not tick. But every time he appears, time shifts, not catastrophically, not enough to break the world, but just enough. Calendars flicker, memory stutters, a man forgets the name of his father. A child is born before conception. A psyker's aging reverses by a week, then leaps forward by 10. And then, silence. Every time he appears, he is always already in the vault. And yet, undeniably, elsewhere too. Who is the broken clock? No one knows. Some say he is an agent of the Emperor, sent from a future where time has lost all meaning. Others believe he is a remnant of a failed future, an echo of a galaxy that was but never came to be. A timeline overwritten but not forgotten. A man who stepped out of his own story and now walks between the folds of history like a ghost. A few, heretics all, though they are whispered of even among the custodes, suggest he is a wound, not a person, but the scar of a moment that should not have happened, given form. A moment that broke time, a breach in the narrative, a misstep in fate. And in that moment he was born. Some custodians hate him, not for what he is, but for what he does. Because the longer they stand near Cell Null Delta, the more they begin to notice small things. Shoes tied differently than they remember. A brother who always walked with a limp now moves freely. A phrase spoken by the Emperor, once burned into memory, has a different intonation. Some dismiss these as fatigue, others as the byproduct of war and stress. But deep down, they all suspect the truth. Time is not as they remember it, because he is changing it. Not with intention, but simply by being here. Each second he exists is a paradox. Each breath held in that vault is a ripple, a note played wrong in the symphony of causality. And yet, no one dares destroy him. Because what if that's what starts it? What if his existence is the cork in the bottle, and to end it is to begin something worse? So they keep him, they watch him, and time bends. The dark cells are full of monsters, demons, cursed gods, laughing weapons, mourning relics. But only one prisoner stares back at the calendar. Only one distorts memory by doing nothing at all. He is not dead, he is not alive, he is simply present. Now then, later, and always. The broken clock does not tick, but it waits, because it knows. In the end, everything breaks, even time. Not all who are imprisoned in the dark cells are monsters. Some are treasures. Dangerous, yes, but beautiful in ways that make the danger harder to see. This is the tragedy of Vault 22 Solaris, known in the shadow scripts of the Custodes as the Gilded Cage. It does not hum or groan or leak rot. It glows, gently, softly, with a warmth that feels welcoming. Like the first fire after a long war, like a hymn remembered from before the galaxy knew what war was. But within that warmth lies one of the most seductive threats ever unearthed by the Imperium. They call it the Angel in Iron, a name that bears no meaning, a name assigned by desperation, because its true name is untranslatable. It is not that the language has been lost, it is that the name is not a name, but a feeling, a concept that slips from memory the moment one tries to express it. And that is perhaps the first and greatest warning. The Angel in Iron was discovered, not on a distant battlefield or derelict tomb, but in the sky, orbiting a dead star in the void between Segmentum Solar and Segmentum Pacificus. A black ship patrol first picked up the anomaly, a structure drifting without propulsion, roughly humanoid in shape. Metallic, yes, but emitting no heat signature, no psychic field, no warp taint. Just peace. It was retrieved by an exploratory Mechanicus cohort. They assumed it was a Xenos construct, perhaps Necron, perhaps an artifact from a long-forgotten human subculture. They brought it aboard, caged it, scanned it, poked it. It did not resist. And within an hour, none of them wanted to leave. The Angel was not mechanical in the conventional sense. Its body was composed of a fluid metallic compound, self-repairing, yet rigid when touched. No visible sensors, no vocal emitter. But when you stood near it, you heard music, not with your ears, with your soul. The logs are heavily redacted, but this much is clear. Every tech priest on the ship renounced the Omnissiah within 48 hours. Every crew member turned their quarters into shrines. Not to chaos, not to any known god, but to it. The Angel never moved, but it changed them. They worshipped it, called it a promise, a better dawn, the final harmony. The ship drifted off course, silent, unresponsive. It was only by chance that an inquisitorial strike team, tracking unrelated warp activity, boarded the vessel weeks later and found a congregation. Hundreds of minds fused in loyal awe to the Angel in Iron, their bodies emaciated but smiling, whispering as one. The Angel, standing in the center, still silent, still unmoving. It did nothing. It needed to do nothing. When the Angel was transferred to Terra, its containment was overseen, not by the Inquisition or the Mechanicus, but the Custodes themselves. This was not debated. Some threats could be studied, some should not be looked at twice. Vault 22. Solaris was built around it, not for suppression, but for isolation. This is key to understanding the danger. The Angel in Iron does not corrupt like a demon. It does not lure like Slanesh. It does not tempt like mortal sin. It inspires. Standing before it, custodians have described a feeling not of dread, but hope, as if they were seen, truly seen by something divine. As if all the burden, all the silence, all the centuries of watching horror from behind a golden mask had been forgiven. No one is permitted inside the vault unaccompanied, not because of aggression, but because it knows your loneliness. It knows exactly what you want to hear, and it says nothing. Because in the silence you will hear it anyway. What is it? Some say it is an Eldari relic from before the fall, a Gestalt dream given form. Others believe it to be a relic of the dark age of technology, perhaps an AI so advanced that it transcended logic and chose compassion. A few, more daring in their whispers, wonder if it is a shard, a piece of something greater, a piece of the Emperor himself, fractured and lost. These are not speculations shared openly, because to ask what the angel is invites the need to understand it, and understanding is the first step to faith. One custodian, Lucan Yor, a veteran of 5,000 years of service, walked into the vault during a standard resonance inspection. He was accompanied by 2 other wardens. They made the required prayers. They observed the seals. They began the data sync. Lucan stepped forward. Not much, just a single pace, and then fell to his knees. His brothers did not stop him. They saw no danger. Lucan said only, "This is what we were made to find." They pulled him out 2 minutes later. He never spoke again. When examined by null adepts, it was determined that nothing had entered his mind. No warp presence, no psychic resonance, no mutation. He had simply found something better than himself, and he no longer wanted to speak. This is the danger. Not destruction, not infection, but perfection. Because in a galaxy defined by horror, cruelty, and the slow grinding death of purpose, the angel in iron offers meaning. The kind too pure to be safe. The kind that burns out loyalty like fire through dry grass. And still it has not moved. It stands, arms open slightly, head bowed, as if listening. The light that radiates from it is not measurable. It's not on any spectrum. It doesn't illuminate so much as enlighten. Some guards who walk past its vault claim to feel weight leave their shoulders. Others cry without knowing why. And every few decades, someone begs to be let in. Not out of obsession, but because they believe it's calling them. These are men and women who have faced demons, who have killed their own comrades in the line of duty. They are loyal, hardened, and yet when they dream of singing, not voices, not choirs, but unity, a perfect chord, carried in light, reshaping the galaxy. There is a phrase carved into the outer bulkhead of Vault 22 Solaris. It was etched in silence by a custodian who later took a vow of perpetual silence. There is no faster way to fall than by flying toward beauty. No one knows what the angel in iron wants, or even if it wants anything. It may be a prison for a divine machine. It may be a siren sent by a dead god. It may be the first herald of something the galaxy has not yet earned. Whatever it is believed. Not by many, but by enough. And belief in a galaxy ruled by the Imperium is a weapon more potent than any blade. So the vault is sealed. The guards rotate, the prayers are made, and the angel remains, unmoving, radiant, patient, because it does not need to escape. It only needs one person, one single soul, to open the door not with their hands, but with their heart. In the darkest reaches of the dark cells, down a branch of corridors sealed behind 8 concentric lock rings and a door made of neutronium laced with nullite ore, there lies a vault that the custodes do not name. Not because it has no designation, but because naming it gives it shape, and shape gives it presence, and presence is what it wants. The ancient logs record it as Vault 0 Epsilon Kappa, though the only surviving word associated with its contents is etched into a half-melted control slate. God Spark. Not an object, not a being, not a weapon. Something else. A flame that isn't fire. A thought that isn't conscious. A spark in the most dangerous sense. A beginning. Something that should not exist, because it implies that something greater already has, or will again. Most threats in the dark cells are terrifying for what they might do. The God Spark is feared for what it could become. The story of its discovery is scattered, and by design. The official record is only a single line in a hidden segment of the Cartographum Obscura. Anomaly recovered from pre-Imperial reliquary structure, Ishtar Halo M23. Custodial designation, unresolved. But unofficially, the spark was found in a vault older than humanity itself, deep in the crust of a rogue world, unmoored from any star, drifting between the stars like a corpse caught in a current. The Mechanicus expedition that found it believed they were exploring ancient STC remnants. Instead, they found architecture that defied all known geometry. Pillars made of material that shimmered before you blinked. Halls that changed direction when you looked away. A stairwell that never reached the same place twice. At the center, an altar. On it, the spark. It was small, the size of a thumb. A sliver of light hovering just above a fractured metal stand. It cast no shadow, gave off no heat. But when approached, auspexes malfunctioned, timepieces spun wild, and memories changed. One engine seer forgot his own name, but could recite entire volumes of pre-Unity script no one had ever heard aloud. Another touched it. He was reduced to ash, but not pain, not screaming, just ash, pure and fine, like the remnants of a burned prayer scroll. And the spark, still hovering, unchanged, watching. It took 2 years and 3 exploratory deaths to retrieve it. A containment unit was built, a prison of forgotten technology, woven with blackstone, coded with self-erasing logic algorithms, blessed by the prayers of 12 loyal Sisters of Silence chanting in counterpoint. The spark was moved, or allowed to be. The records don't say. Only that it arrived beneath Terra under maximum silence, accompanied by a Custodes strike team who had previously never left the palace in over 6,000 years. They did not speak of what they saw. Not one. 2 retired from service immediately. 1 turned to the ecclesiarchy and took a vow of silence. The 4th walked into the Null Vault on the 19th sublevel and never came out. The 5th remained, and his dreams changed. He painted them, crude, wordless murals on his armor's inner plating, images of fire falling upwards, cities built of gold and void, stars burning names into the heavens, a child made of light, reaching. He was later assigned to guard Vault 0 Epsilon Kappa. He still does. The cell itself is unlike any other. Not built to contain mass or power or even psychic force. It's a conceptual nullifier, a vault that suppresses meaning. Language slips inside, symbols break down, identity fuzzes. There are no visible seals, no audible warnings, just a low-level hum of cancellation, as if the cell erases ideas before they can form. The spark floats in the center, still, untouched, unaging, but not inactive. Because when you get too close, and too close varies for every person, you begin to feel it. Not heat, not cold, but intention. The spark wants to be, not free, just real, fully. And that alone makes it the most terrifying entity in all of the dark cells. Because the spark is not malevolent. It does not rage. It does not whisper temptation or breathe corruption. It has no face, no voice. But it has potential. Raw, unbounded, utterly without morality. And if allowed, it will choose a direction. It will become. Some believe the spark is what remains of a dead god, not one of the Chaos Pantheon, but something older, outside of the warp entirely. Others think it's a seed, a piece of the Emperor, torn loose in some secret war, stored in another form, waiting. A few theorists, those who dwell too long near Vault 0 Epsilon Kappa, have begun to dream of alternate realities. Lives they never lived, wars that never happened, galaxies where the Imperium never fell, never rose, or never even was. And in every dream, there's always the same moment, a flash, a spark, and then silence. One dreamer, a null adept named Varro, slit his wrists in front of the vault. On the wall, in his own blood, he scrawled one sentence: "We are not the first flame." No one knows what he meant. Or rather, they do. And that is why the spark remains sealed, because the spark is too early, or too late. Because the spark is a threat to sequence, not to life or death, but to the order of things. Let me be clear. The God Spark is not a weapon. But if held, if understood, if given a path, it could become anything. A new emperor, a new god, a new galaxy, or a new end. And so the custodies watch it, silently, devoutly. One step too close and they'll drag you back. One wrong thought in its presence and you'll dream of fire for the rest of your life. It has no need to escape, because like all sparks, all it needs is a breath. One breath, one opening, and it will ignite, not in flame, not in light, but in meaning, the kind that rewrites galaxies and ends all stories. In the heart of the dark cells lies a chamber more feared than all the rest, not for what is inside, but for what isn't. This vault does not hum with cursed relics or whisper with demonic half-truths. It does not bleed. It does not glow. It is not alive, nor does it seem dead. It is merely quiet, in the way a chapel is quiet after the prayers have died, and all that remains is the certainty that something heard you. It is called the Pale Cage, and within it dwells the entity known only as the Quiet Godling. Even in the dark cells, where the extraordinary is mundane, the Pale Cage is regarded with unique unease. Custodians do not guard it in pairs. They rotate assignments not by schedule, but by instinct. A soft tap on a shoulder, a silent glance. The relief comes early. The relieved does not speak. This is tradition. No one commands it. No one questions it. The corridor leading to the Pale Cage is long and narrow. Lights do not work here, not because the power fails, but because the darkness is absolute. Artificial illumination is swallowed not by the void, but by something deeper, as if awareness itself dims the longer one walks. The cage is not metal, nor stone, nor warped glass. It is white. That's all the custodians can describe. Not a structure built or shaped, just a boundary of pure, silent whiteness. It doesn't reflect. It doesn't shimmer. It simply is, like the concept of absence wrapped around something too terrible to confront directly. No doors, no locks, and yet it holds. Because what it contains is not struggling to escape. It is waiting. The entity inside the Pale Cage was not captured. It was not hunted or fought or found. It arrived. That is the part the custodes will not speak of, not even among themselves. The earliest record scrawled by a custodian whose name was erased from the vault's roster is a short statement burned into a data slate and then encased in adamantium. I opened the cell to find it already filled. I had not opened the cell. There was no breach, no psychic alert, no forced entry. The cell had stood empty for centuries, marked as a null vector, a non-functional chamber, abandoned due to a spatial anomaly that prevented traditional construction. And then it wasn't empty. One moment, nothing. The next, it. No alarms sounded, no shadows moved, but the presence was known. An entity, humanoid, small, barely more than 2 meters tall, featureless save for limbs, a torso, and a face that no one has ever described the same way twice. One report describes a face of ash, another a blank mask. A third claims to have seen a child's face, serene and smiling, but wrong, as if mimicked from memory too ancient to trust. It does not speak, but everyone who approaches it hears something. A voice, not aloud, not in the mind, but in the silence between moments. They do not recall words, only the feeling of being understood. There are no physical defenses in the pale cage, no stasis field, no psychic barrier, no nullification lattice. And yet none who have approached have ever attempted harm. In fact, none have been able to maintain anger in its presence. This is what makes it dangerous. Most things in the vaults fight the Imperium. They rage, they corrupt, they break. The quiet godling reaches, not with arms, not with whispers, but with being. Those who've stood too long in its presence report the dissolution of hatred, of grief, of memory. One custodian, a veteran who once faced the Red Corsairs alone and killed 4 with a broken spear, stood for 15 minutes outside the pale cage. He emerged sobbing, not from pain, but because he no longer remembered why he fought. He was dismissed with honors. He never again touched a weapon. The Ordo Hereticus made an attempt to classify the entity. They sent a psyker, a powerful one, a soul-bonded oracle of the Sigillite's own order. She sat before the cage for 10 minutes and then declared herself redeemed. When questioned, she said nothing, merely smiled. When her superiors demanded an explanation, she answered with the phrase, "There is no sin he cannot understand." She was executed 1 hour later, though the sisters who did the deed hesitated. Every blade drawn felt like betrayal. Even death in its shadow feels like sacrilege. The theories are many. Some say the entity is a shard of the Emperor, not in flesh or mind, but in acceptance, a being formed from what he could not bring himself to destroy. Others believe it is a nascent god, born from the prayers of those who want forgiveness rather than victory. A peace god, if such a thing could exist in this broken age. A godling of understanding, patience, stillness. Not benign, not malevolent, simply still. And in a galaxy driven by hatred and war, stillness is perhaps the most dangerous heresy of all. The ecclesiarchy wants it purged. They've never said so aloud, but petitions have been filed. Priests have hinted at blasphemous neutrality. Sermons speak of false light and the silence that tempts. But no action has been taken, because no one can agree on what would happen if it were killed. Would it resist? Would it die? Would it merely smile and vanish as if it were never there? One inquisitor who was granted audience with it for precisely 89 seconds wrote in his final report, "It is not a thing, it is a question," and then added, after 3 lines of scrawled silence, "and I cannot answer it." The pale cage is not reinforced. It does not need to be, because nothing can break from it, and nothing has tried. The threat lies not in what it might do, but in what it might make us become. The Imperium is built on hatred. The Emperor's crusade was a war, not a sermon. The ecclesiarchy teaches fear. The Astartes are forged in fury. But the quiet godling offers a different promise. Peace without blood. Understanding without creed. Existence without obedience. And in that, it commits its greatest crime, because the Imperium cannot allow it. Because if it is real, then the war has already ended, and no one noticed. So the cage remains, white, still, silent. The entity waits. For what? No one knows. Perhaps nothing, perhaps everything. And in the quiet that surrounds it, even the darkest nightmares of the dark cells seem to pause, as if they too are listening to the silence between all things, and hearing in it the echo of something purer than they can comprehend, something that does not demand worship, only understanding. And understanding in the Imperium is unforgivable. At the furthest edge of the dark cells, where even the shadowkeepers fear to walk alone, there is a place not marked on any schematic, not recorded in any cogitator, not etched in ink or encoded in data. No clearance opens its path. No authority authorizes access. No voice dares speak its name. It is known only as the final door. And it is not a cell. It is a threshold. No one knows who built it. The custodies maintain meticulous records of every sublevel, every stone laid, every cell sanctified. But the corridor that leads to the final door, it exists outside those lines. The route changes. The halls twist. One might walk the vaults 1,000 times and never find it. And then, one day, there it is, as if it had been waiting just beyond your sight the entire time. The architecture near the door changes subtly. The stone darkens, not black, but something deeper, like shadow that forgot what light ever was. The air thickens, sound dulls. Even one's heartbeat feels muted, swallowed by an invisible pressure. Not hostile, not warm, just watching. And then, at the end of that corridor, the door. It is vast, far too large for any human or machine to require. It spans floor to ceiling, carved from a material unknown to the mechanicus. Neither metal nor stone, but something with depth, a texture that seems to recede when looked at, as if you are not seeing its surface, but its surface pretending to be one. It bears no lock, no sigil, only a single mark etched into the center, carved so deep the lines appear bottomless. Do not observe. Not enter, not open. Observe. This is what separates the final door from every other vault in the dark cells. Its danger is not in entry. It is in awareness. The custodians who discovered it, or more accurately were permitted to find it, knew at once that something was wrong. These were men who had faced demons, shattered gods, and silenced impossible truths. But when they approached the door, they looked away, unwillingly, as if the brain refused to process its shape for more than a moment, as if even comprehension might allow it to awaken. One custodian attempted to sketch it. He drew nothing, not blank space, but an actual absence on the page. The parchment around it warped. The ink bled inward. The drawing was destroyed, not burned, but unmade, dissolved by an internal collapse of understanding. After that, no one tried again. The custodes sealed the corridor with psychic lockfields and recursive memory wards. They placed the most hardened shadowkeepers at its perimeter. But even so, the door remains perceptible, not in the visual spectrum, not through scans, but in dreams. Many who work within the vaults have nightmares. It is the price of proximity. But dreams of the final door are different. They are not dreams of horror or torment. They are dreams of entry, of walking the corridor, slow and reverent, of standing before the door as it opens, not away from you, but into you, as if your very perception was the key. Inside the door, no one ever remembers, only that something looks back. And when the dreamer wakes, they are changed. Some become silent, disconnected. Some take vows of blindness, others forget themselves entirely. One custodian stood in meditation after such a dream and whispered, "I saw the end of meaning." He was reassigned, not removed. The custodes do not waste their own. But he was never again permitted below the 9th sublevel. So what lies beyond? Theories are rare, because speculation is dangerous. Even wondering aloud invites the mind to form something. And if the final door teaches anything, it is that forming is summoning. Still, among the deepest scholars of the Inquisition and the lost libraries of the Black Ships, there are myths, forbidden echoes of something older than chaos, older than the warp, older than the laws of time and cause. They speak of a flaw in creation, a crack at the heart of reality, not evil, not divine, just wrong, not chaos, not order, a thing so utterly alien to all forms of understanding that even looking upon it causes the universe to flinch. A god not of destruction, but of deconstruction, not death, not oblivion, but the absence of concept itself. There is one record, just one, locked within a vault known only to the Sigillite's last custodian order, passed down from handler to handler for 10,000 years. A report, 6 words, burned into silver with a seared electu. It cannot be locked, only unseen. This line is the closest thing to official doctrine about the final door, not sealing, not slaying, but unseeing. Because perhaps that is the only true prison for what lies beyond. Ignorance. If it cannot be perceived, it cannot act. If it cannot be remembered, it cannot be. This is the paradox at the core of its containment. It must be watched, but it must not be seen. So the custodians who guard it wear helms of inverted lenses which feed data into artificial cognition spirits, blind watchers, layered in machine thought, watching without knowing what they see. Every 30 hours they are rotated, their memories scoured, their souls warded, and still, occasionally, someone dreams. The Emperor himself, it is said, walked to the door once, not long after it was found. He said nothing, did nothing, only stood, and then left. When asked if it should be destroyed, he answered only, "There is no outside to that inside." What he meant, none can say. Some believe the door is the Imperium's final test, that when all things fall, the door will open, and what lies beyond will determine if we were ever real at all. Others say it already opened once, and we have lived in the consequences ever since. Whatever the truth, the final door stands. Not locked, not open, just there, waiting, not for time, or fate, or death, but for someone, somewhere, to see it, truly see it. And then the last vault will fail, not with noise, but with unbeing. The dark cells will vanish, the palace will vanish, the Imperium will vanish, not as ash, but as if none of it had ever been written, and perhaps it never was.